Go. Erik Horne from Andscape here with Bill Rhoden, Martenzie Johnson, and Jason Reid. We are talking. We could talk about a lot of things, but we're going to talk about Justin Fields primarily because this is the domino we've been waiting to see fall. And Justin Fields is going to Pittsburgh for a sixth round pick from the Pittsburgh Steelers that could turn into a fourth if he plays a certain amount of games. But here is the catch. Russell Wilson is already in Pittsburgh. So now we've got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields on the same team. Two much maligned black quarterbacks that are going to be on the same team playing for a black head coach. This is incredible. And before we start, fellas, I pulled up this little piece of trivia and I thought you might find interesting. I counted 27 black quarterbacks in the NFL on rosters as of today, not counting our guys that are going to be drafted in the draft. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Spencer Rattler, Michael Penix. Not counting those guys. 27 black quarterbacks on NFL rosters. 9 of those quarterbacks are on AFC North teams. 1/3 of the league. If you want to see a black quarterback, your chances of seeing one are better if you see an AFC North team than any team in the league. A third of the black quarterbacks in the league play for the Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns, or Pittsburgh Steelers. I just want to start with this. What was your reaction to Justin Fields going to Pittsburgh and this new world order we have now with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields on the same team? I will give you the honor of starting, Jason Reid.
Well, we talked about Russell last week, and I wasn't shocked. First of all, that Justin Fields didn't have a massive market. The league knew that the Bears were going to draft Caleb Williams, that they had to get Justin Fields out of there. You couldn't have them on the same roster together. That's just not. It was just untenable. So I didn't think that there were going to be a lot of people who offered a lot for Justin Fields because everybody knew the Bears had to get rid of him. The fact that he went to Pittsburgh, I actually think it can be a really good situation for him because Russell Wilson is 35. And although I'm not sure the people who have written his obituary are right about that, best case scenario, he maybe has a couple of years left, even if he still has something left to where he's going to be a starting caliber quarterback. He's 35. So I think this is a pretty good situation for Justin Fields. I think that even if Russell does show something and holds off Father Time a little bit longer, I do think Justin Fields will have an opportunity in a couple of years to play, and he's still a young man. So if the Steelers can get this thing right with the offensive line and they can continue to build, maybe this is a really good landing spot for Justin Fields.
Oh, my turn.
Oh, I was gonna say first with your stat. I don't know how many of you all listen to Martenzie Jones's podcast, but he's been saying for years that how you know a team believes in a black quarterback is if they make all of his backups black. So in the case of the Browns, they have no choice, but they believe in Deshaun Watson, hence why they have Jameis Winston. I forgot to do with the 2 last names. And then I think Huntley just signed with them. And then the Ravens obviously have had basically nothing but black quarterbacks back up Lamar Jackson. And now you're seeing the same thing here with the Steelers. So they believe all these starters, the team believes in them to an extent. When it comes to Russell Wilson and Justin Fields obviously needed this restart. It did not go swimmingly with the Bears. He did show flashes of being an accurate passer and playmaker, but far be it from me to critique him because I wrote a story on him coming out of the draft, which picked at the idea that someone like Zach Wilson could jump this man in the quarterback prospect rankings. That turned out to be true, that Zach Wilson wasn't better than him, but he did not turn out to be the quarterback I thought he was going to be. He obviously holds on to the ball too long. He hasn't shown the willingness to be a passer. He can run the ball like no one else, but he just hasn't been a complete quarterback. So this is a good reset for him. I don't think this says that he's going to take Russell Wilson's job. It's just a one year contract for Russ. So that just shows you the belief that the Steelers even have in Russell holding on to this long term. But I think you still need to see more from Justin Fields to say, okay, just because he's on a new team and a new system with better, I think, playmakers, that he's going to be some new quarterback that we never see. Like, I think he's been pretty consistent in who he is. But the Steelers are better off now between Pickett, Rudolph, and Mitchell Trubisky. They threw 13 touchdowns last year. Any of us, you could have put the four of us out there and we would have had similar quarterback production, particularly when they have two really good running backs and obviously one of the top ranked defenses in the league, and they still won 10 games despite that. So just by throwing Wilson and really even Fields out there, I think you have a better chance for your team to win just because they'll actually get you some touchdowns. But I don't know what this means long-term for either of the quarterbacks, because Russ had a bounce back last year, but he's obviously at the tail end of his career. He's not going to play to 40, like he said. And then for Fields, the jury is still out on if he really is a starting quarterback, because he's capable of running for over 1,000 yards, but he can barely pass for 2,000 yards. And I think that really does mean something, particularly in 2024 in the NFL.
I guess my thing, my person, what the hell are the Bears doing? That's nuts, man. The dysfunctional Chicago Bears. Again, I grew up in Chicago. They haven't had a quarterback since Sammy Ball, but I'm thinking this whole thing, even with Pickett demanding a trade to, he goes to Philadelphia. To me, the whole thing, the Bears are like afraid of competition. You hear this whole thing about, you can't have those two in the same building. Yeah, Caleb battling out with Fields. You can't have them in the same building. It's almost like, that I don't care how good Caleb is, he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle. And when he struggles, the fans are going to go nuts. The fans are going to put pressure on him. And what's wrong with having Fields and Caleb in the same building competing? What's wrong with competition? All of us have grown up in competition. And I think that's kind of what's wrong sometimes, I think, with even some of our generation. Like, everybody wants to take the easy bus as opposed to taking the hard bus. Even Pickett, this guy, instead of wanting to stay and compete, against Russell Wilson, what's he wants to do? He wants to go, and I guess if I'm Jalen Hurts, I'm thinking, wait a minute, so you think you come take my job? You're going to choose between Wilson and me, and you're going to go and compete against me. So I just think the Bears are left high and dry. I mean, they're putting all this stuff into Caleb, and maybe they've got some other plan. So I think that's nuts. I like, speaking of competition, I like the idea of Justin Fields going to Pittsburgh. Number one, Russell's only on a 1-year deal. So if I'm Justin Fields, I want to be able to, who's to say that he can't beat out Russell Wilson? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. Okay, well, I think that's a good debate. That's going to make it a fascinating trip to Pittsburgh. That's good. We already have the competition set, me and Martenzie. In fact, but I just think for Pittsburgh, it's a great move. You got a guy like Russell Wilson, who won a Super Bowl championship, played into, was an interception away from winning to, if Justin Fields is open to it, at the very least, you're sitting in the back of somebody who can teach you. Now, I don't know if Russ is that kind of guy. I mean, Jason, but I don't know if Russ is that. Russ, to me, I mean, I like Russ, I respect him, but he kind of seems to be about Russ. I don't know if he's Professor Wilson, if he's going to sit down and school Justin Fields, but I think it's going to be a great quarterback competition, and they're probably going to bring in one more person. So, long-winded answer. I love the Pittsburgh situation. I like with Queen coming from Baltimore to Pittsburgh. I think they're well set up. But Chicago, man, I know, for fans, be careful what you wish for. So, we'll see.
Can I respond to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Rhoden?
Certainly.
Here we go.
so a few things. I mean, look, I get what you're saying, Bill, about competition, but I think the difference about this is that this Chicago regime did not draft Justin Fields.
Right.
Ryan Poles, the GM of the Bears, is drafting Caleb Williams. If you're Ryan Poles, you want to do everything you can to have Caleb Williams succeed, because if Caleb Williams doesn't succeed, you may not succeed. Like,
Right.
he wasn't tied to whatever happened with Justin Fields. So I think you want to clear the decks because several things. First and foremost, you want to put Caleb Williams in a position where, like, he knows you are our guy. We have no fallback position. It is you. We are completely invested in you. Also, and I think this is a really key point, Ryan Poles grew up in the Kansas City Chiefs organization. He had many jobs in player personnel. He was there when Brett Veach convinced, who's now the GM of the Chiefs, convinced everybody that we've got to go all in to get this kid at Texas Tech. Like Veach was not the GM at the time. He was in player personnel, but he was relentless in convincing everyone above him that we have to do this, because if we do this, this guy will change everything. So, when everybody was talking about what Ryan Poles is going to do, like, knowing Poles' background and knowing how he was there when this decision was made to just throw everything into to get Patrick Mahomes, I knew that if Ryan Poles identified Caleb Williams as not being Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to put that on him. But if Ryan Poles, who is very smart, determined that this guy is this transformational, generational figure, I've got to do everything I have to do to get him. And he didn't have to trade up. He got the pick for the Panthers. So that's why I think when you look at the fact that you want Caleb Williams to succeed, and if you believe, if Ryan Poles is right about Caleb Williams, nothing else is going to matter. All of this is just talk, and it'll just, if Ryan Poles is correct that Caleb Williams is going to be the next great NFL quarterback after the guy in Kansas City, then you're going to do this every day of the week. And no one in 5 years will even remember Justin Fields' name in connection with this.
If just to respond to my doubly esteemed colleague, if cookies and nuts were ifs and buts, we have a very Merry Christmas. Now, listen. One thing we know, Justin, and you as a quarterback historian and the guru, know.
Well, you're more of a historian than I am, so go ahead.
No, just take. I'm just setting you up, but you know that Caleb Williams is going to struggle. You know he's going to struggle unless you're right. You just know he's going to struggle. All right. The question is, and you spoke of Mahomes. Remember, Mahomes sat. Now he sat for a bit because he learned. He learned. And I think that you see the Green Bay situation, right? With Rodgers and out of sight, out of mind.
Favre.
No. Well, Favre, then Rodgers, then Love. So this is just a great, you learn. And also, that's why do you think all these teams are stocking up on quarterbacks? Because you know that they're going to get hurt. They're going to get hurt. So, I just hope that the Chicago GM didn't outsmart himself, because I don't know who they're bringing in. He's got to bring in somebody. I just think competition is good. And I see what you're saying. And we've all been in those political situations because I want my guy, Okay, well, you're going to get it. And for your sake, I hope this guy is what you say is. I mean, if you looked at a couple games this year of Caleb's game this year, if you looked at the Washington game and if you looked at the Notre Dame game, he would not be a first-round draft pick. He had terrible games. So we'll see. I mean, I love to hear what my other esteemed colleague Martenzie says. Whose side are you going to take in this battle? We're throwing you in the middle of this, Martenzie. Whose side are you going to take?
This could be, aside from if we always want to look at things. Well, not we, but I think this culture has been created on the internet of kind of looking at who won the deal, and it's not just an NFL thing; it's an NBA thing too. We're always looking at who won the transaction immediately when it happens. But and I'll let you take over after this, Martenzie, but you could look at this as a win-win for both sides. Justin Fields gets a fresh start in an organization that unquestionably is better run than the Chicago Bears. No shade to Ryan Poles because he's trying to rebuild this thing and try to undo the mistakes of the previous regime. And then he gets an opportunity to bring in a quarterback who, has the potential to be really good and surround him with weapons. So this could work out for both sides. This could work out for Caleb Williams, and this could work out for Justin Fields to have an opportunity to prove himself. And whether it's in Pittsburgh or somewhere else, get a fresh start with a better organization.
Yeah, like you said, we can't really tell who won the trade because, one, a game hasn't been played yet, and we don't know what the trajectory of both Caleb Williams or Justin Fields will be. I will say for the Bears, yeah, they weren't going to get a first-round pick for someone who they, one, didn't want and clearly didn't want, and two, teams, why would you give up a first-round pick for someone who they're going to have on a trading block at some point anyway? As far as it comes to what Caleb Williams will be, obviously the main comp is Patrick Mahomes, right? He has a big arm. He can make spectacular plays. But on the flip side, if you watch him enough, and if you look at their comparison of their college statistics, he could be Justin Fields as well because he holds on the ball for way too long. He took 33 sacks in college, right? And you talk about what happens when you get to the NFL, there's going to be more pressurized situations, particularly obviously when you get to postseason, but week to week, right? And he ended the season against Oregon and UCLA when USC still could have gotten to a bowl game, throwing 2 total touchdowns, right? So that doesn't bode well for him either. And the season fell apart for him. And you're going to a Bears team that doesn't have the greatest offensive line either, where the leading rusher was Justin Fields, and the guy after him, the running back, barely got over 600 yards. So we can assume that because of the highlight plays that Caleb is going to be something similar to a Josh Allen or more accurately a Patrick Mahomes with the big arm, but we just don't know. Justin Fields, I thought, was going to be more Josh Allen coming into the league too, and obviously that hasn't panned out. And again, it's depending on what situation you're put in, and Poles might be the new GM and it might be a new regime. But I always point to this when I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. Their owner is 100 years old. So the culture is what the culture is. It has been for this team, hence why they have not had much success over the last, 40 years, 30 years, right? So to think that because Caleb Williams could be this thing, he's going to come in and automatically change it, I don't quite know. I've seen him enough to know that he is very good, but I've also seen him enough to know that some of those plays when he's holding on to the ball, these spectacular plays when he's holding on to the ball for 8 seconds, that's nearly impossible to do in the NFL. And he's going to be taking the 45 to 55 sacks that Justin Fields has. So I don't know. I like the ceiling, but the floor might not be that high.
Let's shift it to the Steelers because everybody's very critical about the way the Bears handled this situation, but it's water under the bridge now. Basically, let's look at the Steelers and look at it as they took a chance on Kenny Pickett in the first round. That didn't work out, and now they've got a team that as bad as the Bears have been for the past 35 to 40 years post the Super Bowl shuffle. The Steelers have been that sound. Every year, you know what you're going to get with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. You're going to get a baseline of a team that's they're rarely going to bottom out. They're going to be a team that's going to be in playoff contention. How does the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields combination take them from where they were last year to where they can compete now? Does that change anything having Justin Fields on the roster? We talked about Russell Wilson last week, and how that could potentially help them. Does having Justin Fields make them any better? I think about, not just having both of those quarterbacks, but also having a new offensive coordinator because people were trashing their offensive coordinator for the past couple of years, Matt Canada. And now they got Arthur Smith who, for as good or bad as he was as a head coach, he did some good things in Tennessee. He had a good rushing attack in Atlanta. So does having Fields on the Steelers roster make them a better team?
I think if I could say, I think that the fact that you got a ground and pound guy going to take over, because remember that's Russ's thing, is a whole play action thing, So I think the fact that their signature, they could kind of almost transform into the Ravens. I mean, a version of the Ravens with a hell of a running attack. So I think that favors a guy like Russell Wilson. I also think it favors Justin Fields. I don't know how Martenzie, you and Jason feel about this. I'm just intrigued by the competition, the quarterback competition, and will is a guy like Fields who had such a I mean, he really had a trial by fire in Chicago. And what did he learn from that? And will he be humble enough to actually allow or to learn from Russell Wilson? Whether Wilson sits him down and teaches him, or whether you just, I think because remember, he got thrown right into the fire in Chicago. And Chicago is merciless. And I just don't know. I know we're talking about Pittsburgh. I don't know if Caleb, man, I've only been around him a little bit, but I don't know if he's got the kind of armor to deal with what's getting ready to happen to him in Chicago, because it's going to be without mercy, and we've seen some things from him, and I just hope that he could stand that. But I think Justin Fields has been hardened. I think he's been battle tested, and I'm just intrigued by seeing that competition. I think that's going to be a great quarterback competition. Fascinating.
What, Jesse, you want to go?
Yeah, as far as does this make the team better? I mean, like I said, they actually have a quarterback and two, if you want to count Justin Fields as a backup, obviously. So the 10 wins that they got last year, I think they could probably equal that or 11. I don't think this makes them by any stretch of the imagination title contenders. They're still playing in the NFC North, or sorry, the AFC North, and they're not even the best team there, obviously. So it makes them just a little bit better. But as far as long term for them, this is just another stopgap for them. Where they played themselves was letting Ben Roethlisberger play way past the point where he was useful to them. And so they missed out on draft classes where they actually could have gotten someone, to the point where they went and got Pickett in the first round when it's clear no one else saw him as a first round quarterback. And they wasted 2 years doing that with both Rudolph, obviously, and then Trubisky as well. I like Bill said, I don't know how much of a competition is actually going to be. Obviously, Tomlin's already said that Russ is a starter. But again, that 1 year contract means they're not married to him. And if things are going poorly halfway through the season, why not go after the guy you only had to give up a late round draft pick for? But I do think that with a new scenario for both of these quarterbacks, either one that you put in is going to play better than I think that we've seen from them before. You mentioned Arthur Smith, who look, man, he gets a lot of credit for the Ryan Tannehill thing, but like, he had Derrick Henry, and there's no other running back in the league like Derrick Henry. So what he's going to do with Harris, if he's still there, and Jaylen Warren, I don't know if that's going to really offset things for the quarterbacks. But yeah, they're in a better position, but this doesn't make them what they were throughout the 2000s. They're not a title contender even with that defense. It's just Russell Wilson and Justin Fields aren't doing that for you.
Well, with this, with regard to whether or not they're going to be better, I think they will be. People forget, for all the criticism of Russell, I think he still had like 23 touchdown passes. I think he completed almost 65% of his passes. So I know Sean Payton trashed him and they said he can't do it anymore. But like, just those numbers alone were better than anything they would have gotten out of Trubisky and Pickett. So let's just say right there, even if Russell is only what he was last year, that's much more competent that they had a position. And I think Justin Fields gives them a better backup than they had last year too. So I think they're going to be, and again, I could be wrong, but I think they're going to be appreciably better than they were last year at the quarterback position. I'm going to take exception to something my esteemed colleague Martenzie said about the whole Ben Roethlisberger thing. I know people were on the Steelers about having held on to Roethlisberger too long, but the thing about it is that, yeah, the last couple of years you could say that he had really declined, but it's like before those last couple of years, he still gave them a better shot than anybody else they could have drafted. I mean, remember Chase Young's rookie year, when the Commanders went there and beat them, they were undefeated at that point. I think it was something like 11-0 or 10-0, and then they fell off after that. And the thing about Pickett is they did use a first round pick on a quarterback. Now they missed badly, but the argument that, well, if they hadn't held on a lot Roethlisberger so long, they could have drafted another quarterback, they still might have missed on that guy. like because they missed on Pickett. You know, they fell in love with Pickett because the Panthers share their practice facility, and they saw Pickett every day for 4 years. And you know, these organizations, they don't want to use a first round pick on a quarterback or a high round pick at all unless they think they absolutely know who the guy is. And the fact that Pickett got so pissed off when they said to Russell, "Hey, Russell, you're going to start," and I think they had to do that because don't forget, Russell could have gone anywhere. Like, I mean, he could have gone to the Raiders. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to because after he was released, he was a free agent. So I think the Steelers did what they had to. They had to assure him he was going to start, or he could have moved on somewhere else. But Pickett could have said, you know what? Even though they told him he's going to start, I'm going to go in there and win that job. The fact he showed who he is, well, no, I'm pissed. I'm going to leave. Like, that's all you need to see. They were wrong about it.
Exactly.
So, you know, long-winded answer, I think they're going to be better. I don't see how they could not be better at that position. I think they'll be better as a team. But like Martenzie said, I don't see them competing for a championship. I don't see them competing for the division. But when I take that back, if Russell still has something left in the tank and Sean Payton's wrong about him, I think they could compete for the division.
Yeah, and I'm pulling for Sean Payton. I'm pulling against Sean Payton. I just did not appreciate how you trash a guy like just, I don't know, almost just as a black man. I just take, because we've seen that so many times in any profession, you know, whether it's Obama or just a highly accomplished person, a black person being devalued by you know, a white manager, you know, who oftentimes is not in a position to judge you, you know. So I really hate that. And the fact that, I mean, Russell's been to more Super Bowls than Peyton. You know, Peyton won a Super Bowl. Russell's been to 2, won one, and almost won another one. So I just really, no matter, you know, I've been around, you know, Russell, and of course he's got his own thing. But because of that, I automatically I'm cheering for Russell Wilson to do well. But I also love the mentorship thing. You have, like you mentioned, Erik, the whole stat about black backups and all that. You know, I love the black quarterbacks room, whether it was in the Ravens or all the black backups. I'm still cheering for them to do well. So I love the potential mentorship with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think, you know, if Justin's open to it, he'd come out much better. And like you said, Martin, both of you guys said, I think that the Steelers will be better. And I love the idea of Tomlin being I don't know if he's a Russell Wilson mentor, but he clearly is a mentor to a guy like Fields. So, yeah, so I just think it's really a potentially fascinating situation. And I'm cheering for them. I know I shouldn't admit that.